Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining The Brain 101. My name is Matt Caton, and I will be your guide for the next hour, sharing with you all the basic features that you need to know in order to get started using the brain. The brain is an information management system. People classify the brain in many different categories: mind mapping, note-taking, journaling, file management. It's all those things combined into one amazing application. And the purpose of the class today is to give you the basic tools that you need to get started creating your own digital brain. And your digital brain is just that, a digital representation of your own thought process. Your important files, notes, images, videos, everything can go into the Brain application. You can go to www.thebrain.com and download a free installer of the Brain. If you're new to the application, you can create a free account. And for 30 days, you'll have all the bells and whistles of the application. After that 30 days, you will revert to the free licensing unless you choose to purchase a license. So yes, there is a free version of the Brain with more limited capabilities and features. You can purchase a pro license, standalone, one machine, pro combo, where you're syncing your brain to the cloud for online access and access from multiple devices, all the way up to team brain, where you're collaborating with multiple individuals in the same brain database. Now, all those different license types, the features that are available in each one, that information is available on our website at www.thebrain.com. And you can always send a note to support@thebrain.com if you have any additional questions that I don't get a chance to get to and cover today. That being said, you can utilize the Zoom's question and answer panel today to interact with me. At the end of the demo, I'll circle back and answer any additional questions that you may have about more advanced features of the brain that I didn't get a chance to cover today, or something that you want to know more about in detail. I'd be happy to hear from you. And we'll take a look at all those questions again at the end of the demo. But let's dive right in. I have my personal brain open on the screen right now. This is a brain database that I use to keep track of my own hobbies and interests, activities, and responsibilities on a personal level. I keep separate brain databases for work-related projects. So that sort of answers one of the big questions that we get a lot of times today, or just in support in general, which is better, one mega brain with all my information or smaller topic-specific brains? You have the option to create both. You can create as many different brain databases as you'd like. It's a more advanced feature, but you can merge them together or segment them apart into smaller topic-specific brains at a later date. So this is my recreational brain, and you can see that I have it open in three separate interfaces. First, I'm logged into the Brain Cloud, app.thebrain.com, or go to www.thebrain.com, click on login, and access any brain that you've synced to the cloud through the web client, through your favorite browser. So I can continue navigating through my brain, through the web interface. I can add notes, files, attachments, as you'll see me doing throughout the demo today. So this is my brain database running in the cloud. Here's my brain running on the desktop. I'll be spending a lot of time in the desktop application today. But once again, I've got my notes. You'll see file attachments. I'll click through all the different thoughts and categories and information that I keep in my brain. And I take my brain with me everywhere I go. This is my brain on my iPhone, and this is actually reflecting my real iPhone. So if I want to navigate through the brain to work on a particular project that I have happening, you can see I'm on a thought called weekend checklist. So I have all the access and information that I need for tasks and projects that I'm working on, notes, checklists, and so forth. So we'll get to that in more detail in a moment as well. There, I just accidentally tapped on my weekend checklist note there that opened up on the screen. So let's take a look at a few other brain examples. Like I said, this is my recreational brain. We'll be spending some more time clicking around in here, but I just want to share with you the different types of brain databases that you can create. Once again, my recreational brain database of personal activities. I go into this brain every day. And actually every Friday, I review a thought called weekend checklist. So anytime you open a brain, you go to your most recently activated thought. So that's the thought that opened up when I launched this brain for today's meeting. This next brain that I have open is called the Brain Knowledge Base. And this brain is actually available online. If you go to www.thebrain.com/support, you can go to the Brain Knowledge Base. And the Brain Knowledge Base is a brain all about the brain. You want to know more about, I was on a thought called selecting a custom wallpaper background. A user had a question about that, and we can send links out to this brain to answer those commonly asked questions. So there's a lot of great resources in this brain. Again, it is available for you to peruse online at www.thebrain.com/support, a brain about the brain. This next brain that I have is my own personal brain, and it's just simply all about Shakespeare. I'm a little bit of a Shakespeare nut. You can see I've got the Plex open above the notes. There's a button that I can use to switch that. This is actually my preferred layout. So this is the complete works of Shakespeare in this brain. Now, that's nothing new. There's plenty of websites out there in the world that have the complete works of Shakespeare available to them. So you can search for A Midsummer Night's Dream and find the entire play online. What's unique about my collection of Shakespeare's work is that also on each individual thought, I have sort of an overview. If I'm going to go see a Shakespearean play, I like to sometimes read an overview first, just so I have a general idea of what's going on. These are plays that I've read. I create my own little overview for each individual thought. And then I do sometimes some technical studies as well. Character studies and so forth. So I've got different details about different characters, their relationships to one another within the play, who is following whom within the play, and so forth. So a lot of helpful information. If you're familiar with A Midsummer Night's Dream, you know it's sort of the early days of a lover's triangle. Hermia loves Lysander. Lysander loves Helena. Helena loves Demetrius, and Demetrius loves Hermia. So not exactly a triangle, more of a square, but that's sort of the basis behind the adventures of the lovers lost in the woods in A Midsummer Night's Dream. And much more than that, I keep track of when Shakespeare wrote each individual play, where he was working at the time, or who commissioned him to be writing plays. That kind of helps me understand where Shakespeare was in his life. And if you look at retirement, this is interesting. Shakespeare's very last play, The Tempest. In The Tempest, if you know The Tempest, read The Tempest, one of the characters, Prospero, at the end of the play bids farewell and goes off on this journey into the unknown. He's sailing across the sea into the unknown. It's sort of Shakespeare's way of saying, I'm journeying into the unknown. I'm retiring. He died soon after. He's bidding farewell to the stage and potentially farewell to the world. And it makes reading the play so much more poignant. So I study these types of things and keep them all in my brain to have better understanding of what's going on, rather than just finding the play online and reading through it and I'm done. I've got a better understanding of Shakespeare himself, what was going on at the time. There's a lot of history that goes on in this particular brain. And this is a brain that I make available to share with other users as well. So it's more than just retaining information. The links and the network of thoughts and connected data provide additional context to me along the way. And of course, you can create a business brain to keep track of all your business projects, your clients, your different departments, and so forth. This is a sample business brain that I actually downloaded from our website. You can view this brain online as well if you go to thebrain.com/apps, APPS. And the reason why I don't share my own business brain is quite simple. I keep everything in my brain: files, documents, important emails, phone numbers, notes, conversations with customers, and so forth. I keep all that data in the brain. So I've got one application to go to follow processes that I don't always remember off the top of my head. How do I restart the server? What's the password? What are the steps to log in? And so forth. All of that information goes into the notes or into documents attached to thoughts within my brain. So again, one place to go to access all of that important information. And for that reason, there's a lot of proprietary information in that brain. And so I don't share that brain publicly in a web meeting. So this is a sample brain. Again, you can view this brain online, go to thebrain.com/apps, APPS. And there is a large grouping of the brain being utilized in many different aspects, project management, people networking, and so forth. Find a topic that's relevant and of interest to you. There's a full 1-hour video there on that website, as well as brains that can be viewed online. So you can see the brain we actually used in the demo. You can actually see that and browse through it online to give yourself an idea of what your brain can look like. So let's talk about how you create a brain. Now that we've seen a few different brains, I want to share with you that you can always click this little button at the very top of the desktop app, and it will open your brain list. These are all the different brain databases that you may have created. Easy access to all of those brains. Yes, I may have more the brain databases than the average person, but these are brains I share with other brain users, friends, colleagues, family members, and so forth of different topics, and brains that I demo from time to time as well. And I am actually going to create now a new brain. I'm going to click on File and select Create Brain. I'll call this my 101 brain. And let's go ahead and talk about creating thoughts and what exactly is a thought within the brain. Now, first off, when you create a new brain, you've got an option of selecting some different wallpapers, backgrounds, color schemes, and so forth. I'm just going to stay with this light blue because it's very easy on the eyes. But that's your brain is highly customizable. You can change the colors, the content, the background, the wallpaper, and so forth to reflect your own thought process or the subject matter of the brain. But also, if you recall seeing my brain list, it helps me identify which brain is which if I do have choose to have more than one brain database. So each individual brain is made up of thoughts. Thoughts are the building blocks of the brains that we create. And when I click and drag off of a thought, I can create, in this case, a new child thought. So a subcategory. I'll have an area for my personal info and an area for my business. So two different categories under personal. I'll have thoughts for all of my family and friends. As you can see, I like to drag and drop. Drag off of the gate. Each thought has 3 small gates: the parent, the jump, and the child gate. So we have parent thoughts up above the current active thought in the center of the screen. Child thoughts down below. These are subcategories. And we also have this other option to create what we call a jump thought. And a jump thought is something that's related to the active thought, but not necessarily a super or subcategory. In this example, I might create an area for my archived hobbies. I don't like to delete things out of my brain. I like to archive them or catalog them, save that information in some way, both in my business brain and my recreational brain. I might no longer be interested in making bread. That was one of my hobbies at one time. Now I'm not so into it, so I just want to archive that. Underneath this thought, I may have child thoughts and files and documents that I can share with families and friends or reflect on it later if I do come back into that hobby, for example. So I'm just going to click and drag a link off of making bread up to archived hobbies, and then right-click on personal and select unlink. And I've essentially moved that thought to a different area of my brain. I've got a jump thought for all my archived hobbies I'm no longer interested in, and I've got easy access to those from there. Also, another feature that I want to share with you is that you can right-click on a thought to open up the context menu. A lot of options for you available there. Here we're talking about thought creation. So from here, I can create a child thought, a parent thought, a jump thought. And notice there's some keyboard shortcuts associated with those as well. So let's say I've got an area for my bikes. Now I'll use the keyboard shortcut F6. That creates a new child thought, an area for woodworking. So I've got all my different categories here. I'll do the same under business. I want to start sharing some shortcuts with you that you need to be aware of. First, there is a very simple feature within the brain, the semicolon trick. Semicolon allows you to create multiple individual thoughts at one time. This is a great example of when this feature comes in handy. I know my friends' names off the top of my head. I don't have to go look up a document somewhere and start transcribing all that information. I can simply start typing, but I'll separate each thought's name with a semicolon. So as you can see, I created 5 individual thoughts, separated them with a semicolon. 5 individual thoughts were created from that. So if you can, let's say you receive an email with a parts list or just sort of a paragraph of different features that your boss wants you to research, and you want an individual thought in your brain for each one of those different topics. If you can get that into a semicolon delineated list, you can copy and paste into this field very, very easily and populate areas of your brain very quickly. There are also some other import features available in the brain. I can click on File and select Import to import a properly formatted text outline, an existing file and folder structure, even other mind mapping applications, a .mmap file or .mm file. Those can be imported into the brain. Those file types have a limited number of, I think they call them nodes that can be created. Maybe it's like 250. So you create 250 different topics, you're done. You can't go any further. The brain is unlimited mind mapping. We've created brains with well over 1 million thoughts in them. That's not very easy to do. And we've seen real brains out there in the wild created by our user community with 250, 500,000 thoughts. Just amazing, amazing structures. So you can import those more limiting file types into the brain and continue on building your map. And brain zips and BRZs, these are brain archive file types that you could download from our website or from older applications of the brain and import them into the Brain 13. So those are some of the import capabilities. I also want to share with you that I'm going to sync this brain to the cloud. So I'm going to go ahead and upload this to app.thebrain.com and access this brain online. So I've been in the desktop application so far. Now I am going to go out to the web. So here I am in the web interface. I'm already logged in. And again, you can go to www.thebrain.com, click on login at the very top of the screen and log into your own brain account, or you can create new brains, import BRZs. I already have a brain that I've created today. There's my 101 brain. I can click. It's going to launch this brain in the web app. And from the web interface, I can continue on adding new data and content. And this is really great because it opens the door for using the brain on Linux, using the brain on a Chromebook where nothing can be downloaded and installed. It's all web-based. You still can use the brain very, very easily there. So I accidentally logged out. I apologize. I'm going to log back into my account. And here in my business brain, let's say I've got a new project that I'm working on, expand my coffee business in Europe. So, whoops, I forgot to click the button there. There we go. So I am going to create a new child thought here from the web interface, expanding my coffee business in Europe. It's a new project that I'm working on. I know nothing about running a business in Europe. Maybe I'm doing very successfully here in the US, but expanding my business into Europe, I don't even know when to get started. To build out this structure and start doing my research, yes, I could go out to Google and start Googling a few things and slowly, meticulously bringing that research that I do into the brain. I'm going to let AI do some of the heavy lifting for me. So here in the web client, I can click to create a new thought, but instead of creating a new thought, I'll click the AI button. And there's a lot of features in this that I won't get a chance to cover today, but just a general overview. I want the AI to create a general thought structure on the topic of expanding a coffee business in Europe. So there you can see AI has gotten started. It's doing its work. You may have noticed there were three different buttons there. A thought structure, so it's going to be a multi-tiered structure that is being generated for me. Just a grouping or a listing of thoughts was the next option down. And then the final option was to create a new note on a thought. So I'm just going to go ahead and accept these changes. This is a really great feature. You could browse around while they're still highlighted. If you don't like what you see, you can just redo or discard. I'll go ahead and accept these. And doing market research, study competition. I didn't even think about competition that would be there. So maybe I want to find out what are the first steps in studying my competition and market saturation. For that example, I'll go back to AI and I'll just share with you how the AI can create a note for you. So it really doesn't matter what the topic is. That you're researching. AI could be utilized in your brain to sort of just get the creative juices flowing. You already understand what a process is for a particular project that you're working on. You can see I'm not typing at all. This is AI doing that quick typing there for me. The AI, I like to think of it as a really, really smart friend with no filter. So you could do a search, ask it a question, give it a topic, and it'll give you all the information, and sometimes information that you might not yet have considered, or at least set up a structure for you to start adding a framework to the research that you're going to do. Just a wonderful, wonderful new feature that is currently incorporated into the web client and is in the process of being added into the desktop client as well. So the desktop agent, we're currently on TheBrain 13. We hope to include AI in TheBrain 14 of the desktop installer. So let's go back to the desktop now. And I just want to share with you once again, they look the same, but now I'm running TheBrain desktop application. And if I jump back over into my business area, I've got no content there. TheBrain hasn't synced yet. TheBrain syncs in the background every 3 to 5 minutes. Or if I'm being impatient, I can just click that sync icon and say, go ahead and sync now. And any changes that happened out on the web will now be showing up in the desktop client. I can sync my iPhone as well. And any changes that have been done here have been sent to the web and my other devices that are connected and that I'm syncing to. So let's go ahead into business and create some new subcategories. I'm going to have an area for my clients that I'm working with. I can start using that semicolon now that I've shared with you how it works. My projects that I'm working on, my different, team members. We'll just start with that. So 3 new thoughts. Expanding my coffee business into Europe is actually a project. So notice I can click and drag that thought down. You can drag a thought on the screen around the current active thought, and TheBrain will relink it for you. So if you want to make this a jump thought, that's a side project I'm not ready to work on yet. So I'm going to keep track of those in my jump thought area, or I do want to move it down below. TheBrain can always relink for you. And that's really a crucial feature of TheBrain, because projects change, projects evolve, things that you're working on, new ideas come to light and take different shape. And you can always go back into your brain and rearrange that content, how it's related. You can actually move thoughts through phases or business projects, processes within your brain as well. Some more advanced features, but keep those in mind for the future, that you can always go back and tweak and do a little bit of gardening on how thoughts are connected within your brain. Another feature that I want to share with you is that TheBrain is always helping you to find existing content. And what I mean by that is, you may have seen this feature happen as I was typing. If I start typing a thought name, I'm just going to type the letter B. And notice TheBrain has provided me with business, bikes, Brendan, Brigitte, all thoughts that contain a word that start with the letter B. If I say BR, sort of truncates that list, anything that matches so far. There's bread, there's brand, brewing. So anything that matches what I've typed in. And this helps you to reduce duplicate thought names. I was about to create a thought for my team member, Brigitte, but I see Brigitte is already here. I can double click, and rather than creating a new Brigitte thought, I'm linking to that existing Brigitte thought. So Brigitte, as you can see, is both a personal friend of mine, but she's also one of my business team members. So I have her linked in both categories. My own organic brain might be thinking, hey, let's give Brigitte a call, see if she wants to go to the movies this weekend. She's a friend of mine. I'll travel down through my brain through that branch. I better give Brigitte a call and see if she has those sales order forms that we talked about in our last team meeting. I might go down through my business branch of the brain. So it's all dependent on how my own organic brain happens to be thinking. My digital brain will always find that information for me and help me make those cross connections through all of my data. You'll see many of those as I go, once we create some thoughts and content, we'll jump back into those existing brains that I shared with you, and you can see how those different features come into play. Also on the Brigitte's thought, I'm going to have her phone number, so I have easy access to give Brigitte a call. Notice that the brain will highlight phone numbers. It will highlight URLs, email addresses, Brigitte@work.com. Not highlight, but hyperlink. So I can right click and, I can click. And if I've got Skype set up, or if I'm accessing my brain from my iPhone, I can just tap on that phone number and immediately give Brigitte a call. The same with an email or a URL going right to that website and so forth. So very, very capable and handy notes section, which we'll be talking about more in just a bit as well. But also another way that the brain helps you to find content. Let's go over to my clients that I'm working with. And let's say I've got a new client, Alpha Corporation. And let's go ahead and add some notes. Maybe I'm starting off a little checklist. I like to use some keyboard shortcuts, but checklist is this button. It behaves much the same as an unordered list or an ordered list, but instead I get a checkbox so I can check and uncheck items as they get completed. Very, very helpful in the brain. So I've got a checklist of what I need to do with Alpha Corporation. I need to send them a welcome letter. I need to check with, if I could spell today, with Shelley on the non-disclosure agreement. Now, notice that Shelley is underlined in blue in my note. Now, this is not a spelling identifier. That is a red line with my color schemes. That blue line indicates to me that that is what we call an unlinked mention. That means I've got data, I've got a thought on Shelley elsewhere in my brain. I can turn this into a backlink, so they're permanently linked back and forth. In this case, I just want to activate Shelley to go to the Shelley thought. Once again, I'll have Shelley's phone number on her thought, and I can give Shelley a quick call, see if she's got that NDA document signed. Or if I happen to be on Shelley's thought, I can see down below, oh, there's an unlinked mention on Alpha Corp. I need to ask Shelley about the NDA agreement. So we were having a conversation about something completely different, and my brain is reminding me that I've got another task that I could complete with Shelley, and that's to check in with her on that NDA. And if there's anything else I want to discuss with her about Alpha Corp, I can easily access that thought and go through that list. And when that step is completed, I simply check that off. So those are unlinked mentions and backlinks. And as your brain grows and evolves, I've got some brains with thousands of thoughts in them, like literally close to 10,000 thoughts in some of my more important brain databases. And those unlinked mentions come in handy almost every day. I'm reminded and easily accessing other pieces of related information. I don't want a link to Shelley on this particular thought because I just have one question for her. She's handling the legal documentation. One quick question. She doesn't need to be permanently linked to this thought. Maybe Brigitte is handling, there she is handling or overseeing all relationships with this new client. So Brigitte is going to be linked as a jump thought, but Shelley is just showing up as an unlinked mention in a little checklist over in my notes. Another way that these checklists come in handy if you're a pro licensed user or higher is you can run a quick report and find all unchecked items in your to-do list. So any time you create a checklist and a note, an unchecked item is added into your to-do list. So you can see I've got one to-do pending. I may have checklists scattered throughout this brain on dozens of different thoughts, but I can easily find them by running a report for my to-do list, all unchecked items in a brain. Very, very handy tool. And when everything gets completed and is completely checked off, it no longer appears in your to-do list. Anytime you add something new that is unchecked, again, it pops up in your to-do list. It's just going to refresh there in just a moment. There it goes. And so it shows up in my to-do list as an unfinished task. So let's start getting some data into this brain as well. I have this welcome letter to do. So let's go ahead and create that, my welcome letter. Now, you'll know that you've become a power user of the brain when instead of going out to Word, for example, opening up your company letterhead and start typing up your new document and then saving that document into the brain, you'll go to the brain first, create the new thought where this document will live. Maybe this welcome letter will be shared with other clients. I can link them up. So Alpha Corp, they're going to go out to Delta, Beta, and so forth. So anyone that ever receives this welcome letter from my company will be linked to this particular thought. So I know that they've received it. And then these thoughts will be linked to my client thought. There it is. I'll go ahead and do that now. So you can see how the brain is starting to really take shape. All of my different clients, who's received the welcome letter, Alpha Corporation, my checklist. Brigitte's working with this particular client. I've got access to her for my business team, for my friends' thoughts, and so on. So let's get some data into this brain, some files and documents. I've created this welcome letter, but the welcome letter doesn't exist yet. In just a moment, we're going to talk about drag and drop. But for now, let's actually create new documents from scratch. Over in the content area, which we're going to start focusing on now in a little bit more detail, I can click to attach. Now I can link to an existing file if it is there, or link to an entire folder or a URL. In this case, I'm going to add a file from my template list. How did I build my template list? I click on attach, go down to template help, opens up this screen with instructions. Follow these on-screen instructions. It's going to open up another directory on another monitor, of course. And I can add any file type that my operating system knows how to use into this directory. So new applications I've just installed that save things as .abc files. As long as your OS knows what application to launch for a .abc file extension, then the brain can handle that as well. You can create customized documents. So now it's just not blank Word documents and Excel spreadsheets. Company cover letters, fax cover sheets, pre-filled out sales order forms, whatever document type and templates you use most often, you can populate your template list. I'm going to choose this letterhead document. So let's start from scratch. I'm on my welcome thought. I click on attach. I go to my template list, and there's my company letterhead. I select that option. It launches Word once again on my lower monitor. There it is. And here is my welcome letter to my new favorite client. Every client is going to get a letter that says they are my new favorite client. And I'll save this. Doesn't ask me where I want to save it to. It's saved internally inside the brain. Anytime I need to get back to this thought, I can just navigate to this thought, click, and go right into this document. If I can't remember, what did I call that document? I wrote something about my favorite client. I can do a search, and I'll do a search for the word favorite. And favorite is appearing inside the welcome letter .doc, as you can see. We'll talk about search in a little bit more detail in just a moment, but search within the brain utilizes your operating system's indexing capabilities. And what that means is we've tapped into Spotlight on a Mac and Windows search on a Windows machine. Or maybe they call it desktop search now. No, I think it's called Windows search. And That makes the search results in the brain very accurate because your OS does all the heavy lifting, but also just very fast and light for the application. And everything is getting indexed in the brain. Thought names, all of your notes that you're adding, even all of the words and text within text-based file attachments, Word documents and spreadsheets, PDF files, and so forth, all being indexed and therefore shows up in your search results. Let's go ahead and create a new document from, oh no, I did a new document from scratch. Let's bring in some existing documents. So I've got some sample documents here that are specifically related to what's going on with Alpha Corp. And as you can see, I can simply click and drag right into the brain. Now, I've set up my brain so that when I drag and drop a file into the brain, it actually moves that file internally into the brain database. So corporate framework, that Excel spreadsheet is no longer here. That's been moved internally inside the brain. If you want to modify how your brain behaves for drag and drop, go into your brain preferences. I'm clicking on options preferences. On a Mac, you would click on the brain preferences. And on the behavior tab, sort of a very important setting within the brain. There's a lot of settings here so you can really tweak the application to best fit into your business process or your desired formatting and so forth. But this is a particularly important one. When you drag and drop, the default setting out of the box when you install the brain is to copy those files in. I don't like having duplicates. I move everything internally into the brain. Therefore, when I sync the brain to the cloud and then to download that same brain on another machine, the file is there. It's internal in the brain database, as opposed to just linking to a file. Here I am on a Windows machine today. If I link to a file, which I can do, I can change my setting, or I can override my drag and drop with a keyboard setting. There it is. So now I'm grabbing this, making choices number 2. I'm going to drag, but I'm going to hold down the Alt key. So great, that's a shortcut. There's a little black arrow icon there on the logo for this making choices document. And if I go to this thought and right click and look at the properties, I can see where the document actually resides. But if I sync this brain to the cloud and access this brain from my MacBook, for example, it's pointing to a document on C:// blah, blah, blah. A MacBook doesn't even know what a C drive is. So that file would not be accessible from my Mac. Had I moved that file into the brain, synced to the cloud, downloaded on my Mac, if I have an application that can launch a PowerPoint or Excel spreadsheet or a Word document, then I can still access that file on any device that I sync to. So those are some of the pros and cons of linking as opposed to attaching. Anytime you attach a file internally into the brain, it goes with it to the cloud and with it to any other machine that you are syncing to. And with a Pro Combo license, you can install the brain and keep brains in sync on up to 4 different devices. So I have my brain here on my desktop machine that I use while I'm at the office here at TheBrain Technologies. If I'm at my home office, I've got a separate desktop Windows machine where all my brains are kept in sync. I don't have to travel around. I do have a traveling MacBook that I use from time to time, and my brains are available there as well. So the syncing is more than just accessing your brain from the web client. It's also that connector to keep multiple brains in sync from multiple devices. And not to mention my iPhone, where I have my all my brains available there as well. So we've brought, with drag and drop, we've brought documents into the brain. I should point out that you can go back, right click on a file attachment. This is a shortcut. I can move or copy a file into the brain, or I can go to an internal attachment. Whoops. And right click on the file, move or copy that file out of the brain. So it's not permanent. If you accidentally link to something and you want to move it, you can get back to that file and just bring it right into the brain before you sync and are on your way again. So the last component that I want to share with you before we revisit those other brain databases that we reviewed at the very start of the call is web content. And I've got a few web pages open here that I want to bring into the brain. So let's get those on the screen at the same time. And let's navigate over to, yeah, I'm on Alpha Corporation. Let's say I've got a new web design that I'm working on for this particular client. And I found some web pages that I particularly like. They're interactive. I think my client will like them. I want to share these with them in my next meeting. I'm going to drag and drop when I find this web page. I'm going to drag and drop from the address bar right into the brain. It creates a new thought. It's either going to capture the name of this website as it appears on the tab in your browser. It can't always do that depending on how the page was coded. In this case, it simply grabbed the URL. I can click on any thought in my brain to rename it. So this is just the star map website. And what I like about it is that it is interactive. So I just make a little note. That thought label is what appears when you mouse over a thought. So sometimes it's helpful to add an acronym or just some additional content about, why this thought is here or what that thought is on the thought label. And that's indexed as well. So in the future, if I forget what was the name of that star website, I know it was interactive. Oh, there it is, star what map website. So I can get to it by searching that way as well. And as you can see, it becomes interactive right here in the content area of the brain. So I can continue on, demoing what I like about this website to my client right from the brain. So one more time, you drag and drop from the address bar. So each, when you're in a browser, I think all browsers these days are tabbed interface. The tab doesn't do it. If I try and drag the tab down into the brain, that tab has its own predefined set of rules, and it's just going to drop it into a floating browser of that browser type. So grab that icon in the address bar, click and drag into the brain, and you've got, once again, easy access to that website. It's going to load up right there in the content window. Any interactivity is going to be available for you there as well. So I can launch that from the brain, sync that, access it from the cloud online from my other devices as my brain continues to grow and I'm accessing my brain from different locations. So now we've created this great brain with websites, with files and documents, some different notes. I want to share with you then what the brain can become. This particular brain, as you can see, if I just run a report, I already have, and this is obviously due to the fact that I ran that AI to incorporate a bunch of thoughts into the brain, but this brain already has 88 thoughts in it. So just within the past, we've been on the phone together for about 30 minutes, 88 thoughts in this brain, but the framework is there for all of my business adventures, my friends, my personal hobbies and interests. I'll start collecting all the data I need and drop them into this brain. My brain, revisiting my personal brain, I'll share with you. Here's my weekend checklist. One of the things that I'm working on this weekend, I'm an amateur woodworker. So my kids and I are building a cedar strip kayak. I keep pictures of progress along the way. That's really just for fun. But down below, more importantly, I've got checklists of what the next step is. I've got tips that I've found on videos or other blogs, and I'll copy and paste those. Rather than read the whole blog again, I'll copy and paste those. These tips came from watching the video of what I'm doing next, and I can launch that in a new browser. Sorry, that's super loud on my ear. Hopefully you don't hear that as well. Pause. There we go. So I've got easy access to videos that are helping me along the way. I've got back to kayak build, different sawhorses. I love modifying sawhorses to fit oddly shaped materials and so forth. These are zoomable icons. I shared with you earlier, I believe I shared with you that you can click to open up the thought properties, to rename a thought, to add a label to a thought. You can add thought types and tags, a little bit more of an advanced feature within the brain there. But you can also add zoomable icons. You can upload an image You can select from our icon library. We have over 2,000 different icons available. And sometimes an icon is just easily identifiable as this is a key prospect that I'm researching, or this is an important step in a process. And you can add icons to identify those, or upload your own icons. And in this case, I like to upload things with, certain measurements that I'm looking into or researching, or pictures that I've taken of different projects and so forth. And as you can see, I use my sawhorses not only for kayak builds, but for other outdoor activities. It falls under the tools category. So custom tools that I build. The Laura Bloom Journey is another project that my kids and I are looking into. Again, all the steps and processes there. This was a canoe. It was purchased by Ash's Stillwater Boats. So I've got their website and easy access to them. Anytime I purchase something, I have my, I purchased actually here, let's shrink this down. This is whoops, I'm making it larger. This is a PDF. And so I keep the PDF in my brain in case I want to print out another copy. I've got easy access to that in the Brain's built-in PDF viewer. And as you saw, anytime I purchase something, it always says, print this out for your records. No, I just copy and paste right into my notes. That's where I keep all of my different receipts and projects and so forth. So easy access, and those web pages, once again, load up right there in the content area of my brain. So hopefully that gives you an idea of, the different ways that you can use a brain. I've shared with you my own checklists, PDF files, Word documents, spreadsheets, web pages, emails, all these different file types, videos, images. Without the brain, I would be sharing or saving that content, I should say, in my browser bookmarks and favorites. Well, I don't always use the same browser depending on what machine I'm on. My emails would be often Outlook somewhere. Files and documents would be somewhere completely different. And here I keep them all within a few clicks of one another. Also, when I find an important web page, sometimes I don't share or save the entire web page. I just save a certain component. Somewhere on a blog that I read, I just found that particular tip, how many coats of epoxy go on the outside versus the inside. That's good for me to know. And I simply save that right there in the notes of the brain, so I never forget, and I don't have to watch a full half-hour, 45-minute video to relearn that information. So that's my personal brain. My work-related brain, again, I don't typically share, but I just want to share with you. This is the sample brain. It's built in very much the same way as my own work-related brain, keeping track of my clients, all the different categories they fall into, clients by industry. If I look at media and entertainment, Instant Dynamics is a client that I'm working with. Down below, all of the different projects, presentations that we've provided. If I want to go to one of those See the World ad campaign, all the art assets and meeting notes that went into that ad campaign, or the Reach Out ad campaign, all, once again, very easily accessible. My jump thoughts are the people that worked on that particular account. And also notice this thought has multiple parent thoughts up above. That's really important to point out. As my brain continues to grow and evolve, Instant Dynamics falls into different categories, and I link accordingly. So I'm reminded when I come back to this client, they're not only a media and entertainment client, it's a client I've had for 10 or more years. They're currently up for renewal, and they're a gold service level client. That's some really, really valuable information. And with a file and folder directory, I may have saved that information through shortcuts. So I can go to my clients that are up for renewal. After I review all my clients, I link those existing folders into renewal. Once I open up Instant Dynamics, I lose sight of all those other relationships. That it's a gold service level client, that they're a VIP customer of ours. So it's really, really helpful to visualize those relationships in a brain as your brain continues to grow and evolve over time. And then finally, one last component that I wanted to share with you is we talked earlier about that I just looked over at my checklist that I keep in another brain, by the way, of everything that I wanted to cover. How do we delete content, delete thoughts out of the brain? Well, let's get back to my personal area of my 101 brain. Let's say I've got a new thought on bird watching, and I no longer wish to follow the hobby of bird watching. I want to delete this thought rather than clicking on it, repurposing it, giving it a new name. I just want to delete that thought. It's a two-part process. First, I'm going to right click and I'm going to select to forget this thought. The forgetting portion of this process is the safety net. So you don't accidentally right click, go to the wrong setting or wrong option here in the context menu and click delete. You're moving your mouse too quickly, not paying attention. You meant to duplicate the thought, you accidentally deleted it. That would be bad. So step one is to forget the thought so it can still be recovered. It's like the recycle bin on your operating system, or it can be permanently deleted. Once again, I could run a report, show me all of my forgotten thoughts. There's just one. If you're a free licensed user of TheBrain, you can click on options, show forgotten thoughts, and there it is. And I can either right click here in the report or here in TheBrain, and I can permanently delete this thought. Or if I accidentally forgot it and I want to remember it, I can do that as well. I'll go ahead and permanently delete my bird watching thought, and I've forgotten that thought out of the brain. So we've created a basic brain structure with some branches for all of the different work-related projects we're working on and our personal interests. I have attached notes and files, documents, web pages into the brain, and I can continue on building out this brain in the future with all of the important data and accessing this brain from multiple devices as well by syncing through the brain cloud. So thank you for sharing your time with me today. It's always just a joy for me to share the brain with new users. Again, we're always available to answer your questions at support@thebrain.com. If anyone on today's webinar has a question for me now is the time. We're about ready to wrap things up. Go ahead and write that into the Zoom question and answer panel, and I'll be sure to answer or demo anything that you may also be interested in. But if not, you can reach us at support@thebrain.com, or if you go to our website at www.thebrain.com, let me open that up in a browser. In the lower right-hand corner, you see a little pop-up message. During business hours, that's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time, there's a real human being at the other end of that line. You're not talking to a bot or AI. You're talking to a real human. And sometimes it actually instigates and comes up from us. So it says, "Hi, this is Matt. How can I help you?" That's really me. So we're always happy to answer directly any questions that you may have about the brain. I know any one of us out there in the world has called Microsoft, or we've got a question for Adobe. Speaking to a real human being can be a challenge, but at the Brain, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have about our software at any time. Feel free to reach out. And Fred did have a question, how to best manage and print notes. There are actually a lot of different ways that you can print notes within the Brain. Let me go back to the desktop application, and let me actually go to a thought with a note. Here I am in my Kayak Brain, and let's say I want to print this out to share it with a friend or colleague or what have you. I actually can export this note. There's a little button here to export, and I can export this to a document. So I'm creating a PDF, or I can open it in a browser window. That one's really easy. So I'll just select open in browser, and it's going to launch in my web browser. There it is. So here I am in Google Chrome, and I've got all my pictures, all my notes and content. And from here, I can right click and print. So if that's just a really, really easy way to print out a note within the Brain. If you want to print out more than one note, let's say I want to print out all the notes I have on my kayak build, as well as deck inspiration, this thought, this is a much more advanced feature, but I'm going to control click on kayak build and control click on the little gate for its child thoughts. I can build this out even further and click on edit, select related thoughts, and select all child thoughts for 20 generations down. So I can really fill up this selection box. And there's a lot you can do from there. This is where you can copy thoughts, paste them into another brain, and so forth. But if I want to print out all these thoughts and their notes, I can right click and I'm going to create a document, and it's going to have not only my kayak thought, but all of the child thoughts and their notes down below. You see I've got some kanji in some of these as well, Japanese text. So I can print all of the notes for a grouping of thoughts as well. So, and again, I can save that as a PDF to print out, HTML to print out, plain text if I don't want the images and I just want the data. Many different options there. So that's with the control click. Selecting a grouping of thoughts. On a Mac, you would command click to get those. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Fred, for making today's, and everyone else that joined today, George and others. Thank you for joining the webinar. Feel free to join us in a future Brain 101. And if you have any additional questions, contact us either through the web site or at support@thebrain.com. We're happy to hear from you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. And as always, enjoy your brain. Bye.